Episode 1.
Hi, and welcome everyone to our first episode of Pencil and Ink Reviews. I'm John Brewski, joined by my co-hosts Giuseppe Toledo, Tom Madonis, and my beautiful wife, Ruth Brewski. Today we hope to enlighten you on the exciting world of comic books and get you interested in reading along with us by listening to our reviews. Our first couple of episodes will be a mashup of about 16 different books, basically informing you of what happened in each issue and giving our suggestions of what books would be good to buy and which ones we feel you could pass on. And as we go on, we'll decide which books we'll continue reading on a monthly basis and which books will be dropping along the way. Today we'll be discussing All New X-Men, Indestructible Hulk, Captain America, and we'll start with the New Avengers.
So, Uncanny Avengers is written by Rick Remender, and the artist on the book is John Cassidy, and the colorist is Lauren Martin. This is a book I've been kind of anticipating for a while. Rick Remender has probably been one of my favorite writers for the better part of 2 years. He wrote Punisher during Dark Reign, which it was really good for the first 12 issues, and then when he started doing Frankencastle, it got kind of weird. He kind of lost me there. I think he lost. I think he definitely lost John there.
Yeah, I got to give it to him. He tried doing something creative with it, and he actually kind of gave Frank Castle a little bit of purpose and a little bit, I don't want to say immortality, but a little bit a lasting longing life with adding in, this heart crystal and whatnot. So I kind of see where he went from there, but man, did I dislike that run, especially being a huge Punisher fan.
And I doubt that it will ever be referenced again unless they get another guy.
No.
I mean, Remender likes to do he likes to cross horror, sci-fi with your typical superhero comics, and sometimes it really works really well. And I think in the case of Uncanny X-Force, it did that. I mean, it wasn't so much horror like Frankencastle was, but it had a different vibe than most comics did, and he did a really good job with that. So from what I've read online, Uncanny Avengers is supposed to be a sequel to Uncanny X-Force. And what we get here is the book opens up with a mysterious surgeon operating on someone unknown on his brain. He's commenting on the Avengers vs. X-Men event, which was a big war about Hope Summers, and it had to do with the Phoenix Force returning from outer space and coming to Earth. Basically, the Avengers thought it was going to wipe out all life on Earth. The X-Men thought it was going to rekindle mutation and the mutant race, and that's what it ended up doing. But in the process, Scott Summers ended up killing Professor X and doing a lot of other horrible things. And well, kind of horrible. Really, if you really look back on it, they got rid of nuclear weapons. They got rid of a lot of war and a lot of horrible things on Earth. The only thing that Scott did was really kill the professor.
That's horrible enough.
Yeah, well, Namor wiped out all of Wakanda, which is the Black Panthers' nation of Africa. I thought that was the biggest atrocity of the whole event. I don't know how many people he killed with that typhoon or whatever he unleashed on them. So, yeah. So anyway, yeah. So back to Uncanny Avengers. So we got a mysterious surgeon operating on a mutant. We don't really know who he is at first. Then we move to Logan, and it's a memorial for Professor X, who just recently passed away. He's commenting I guess, how he felt when he first joined the X-Men, and then what the professor did for him, trying to get his animalistic side repressed and more the human being that he is to come forth in his personality and be a better person and serve a better purpose in life. He gives a speech which is kind of, I don't know, like he's like almost like talking down to the rest of the X-Men who are there for the eulogy and the burial. He kind of makes it sound like they failed in Professor Xavier's dream, and I don't know. What did you guys think of that?
Yeah, it made me interested to see where they were going to take it. What's going to happen? Is this some type of foreshadowing that's going to happen on in different books? And I mean, not to take away from your review, you realize what all this focus is on Professor X. Why is this book, that says Uncanny Avengers talking about Professor Xavier and what's going on with Wolverine and just how he's acting? And it made me interested to see, what is going to happen. What's Wolverine's part in all of this? And how are the Avengers going to coincide with the X-Men now? So,
yeah. Yeah, and then it moves on. We see that Alex Summers, Scott Summers' brother, it moves to the Brig of Shield, where Scott's being held in prisoner by the Avengers, and we get like a heated conversation between the two brothers, which these guys have always not really gotten along, as far as I know. I've read a little bit of the retro stuff, and the stuff that I've read from the '80s is they've really never gelled at the same time, being on the X-Men team at the same time. And they have a heated discussion. Alex basically he kind of attacked Scott personally, saying it wasn't about rebirthing the mutant population. For him, it was more about him not being able to allow himself to be the guy who let the home team lose on his watch, or let the mutant race die out while he was in charge of it, which I thought was kind of interesting. I thought that was pretty cool. It was an interesting take on the idea. Alex continues to kind of rip Scott apart during this little one-on-one, criticizing the decisions he made, making what he considered it was called Utopia for years. Before I even moved to San Francisco, when I still lived in Detroit, he calls it Magneto Island. Scott says he spent his whole life fighting for the professor's dream, and then he learned better. I mean, the guy's been through so much, and a lot of people. I've listened to Uncanny X-Cast, Rob Briscoe and Brian Perillo, and they don't like what's going on right now in the X-Men storylines. They really think Scott's acting out of character, and it's unusual. But to me, it makes so much sense. For so many years, this is a guy who has always fought the good fight. He's lost Jean. He's lost other friends along the way. Nightcrawler was just killed in the Messiah Complex trilogy that they did, the ending part. I mean, he's seen the worst of the racism, or whatever you want to call it, the bigotry towards mutants, and I think he's finally snapped. And in a lot of ways, I've always kind of sided with Magneto. I think
you monster.
I don't know. Not completely, but I feel like when you see some of these villains these guys have faced, you can understand why someone with such a pure heart, who's fought the good fight for so long, could crack under that and become,
who feels defeated.
And become the person that Scott's become now.
A lot of people have been really disappointed, though. I remember I was talking to my brother-in-law about it, and he's the one that got me into comics back in the '90s. And I was just asking him, because I hadn't talked to him about comics in a while. I was like, you reading any of the new Marvel Now stuff? And he's like, he's a big X-Men guy. He's like, I can't stand what they're doing to that book, and I was like, why? This is what makes the books interesting, is they evolve, they change, I just think people are a little bit stuck in their old ways, kind of. I mean, there's especially the old school readers. They're so used to that, these characters and what they've embodied for years and years and years.
Yeah.
And it's hard for a lot of the old school readers to really agree and go with the changes now.
Well, and that's the thing. Everyone acts like this came out of the blue, and that's not the case.
It didn't come out of the blue, but
I mean, I don't know. I've been reading comics longer than both of you guys. I started in 2000, right?
Yeah.
And around the time when Grant Morrison started writing all new X-Men, I've seen Cyclops start to change, to become the character that he is now. And I don't know if it's Marvel editorial saying we want Scott Summers to become more of a gray area character, or if it just kind of evolved that way through the various writers that they've had in the X books till now. But it makes sense to me. It's been a 10 to 12 year long process of him getting to the point where he is right now. And I think, to me, it makes sense. I don't know. It's not something that he turned bad right away, like out of nowhere. Like he was,
right.
He was cheating on Jean for a little while with the White Queen.
Yeah.
I mean, it wasn't like a physical thing. It was like a mental thing. She was in his mind, but it was there. You know what I mean? Like, he's been slowly becoming, I don't know, not the Boy Scout that he was before.
Yeah.
Right.
And Wolverine has been doing the opposite. He's been kind of changing from that bad boy type character that he's been always to a more like responsible. Yeah.
Right. And bringing that back to Uncanny Avengers, Professor Xavier kind of even says that to him. He has that flashback, and he tells Logan, he's like, you're not a savage. You're not what you think you are. If you give it time, we'll find out what you are. And I think they did a good job of mentioning that and showing that, these characters are essentially switching, roles.
Yeah, they are. Yeah, Scott's becoming like the bad boy, and Wolverine's becoming more of the.
Which you would never think. You would never think in a million years that Cyclops, Scott Summers, the guy that we grew up with in the 90s, watching him on television, would become this, almost Magneto Jr.
I remember a time back a long time ago when I was going through, like, the 70s and 80s stuff, when there was a time, it was right after Jean died during the Dark Phoenix saga, where Scott gets defeated by Storm, for the leader of X-Men. And he's just devastated by it, and he leaves the X-Men.
He's like, I'm done.
And he's like this dark, unshaven guy who's just super depressed and just doesn't, he's kind of lost his way, kind of thing. He's staying in dirty motels, and he's on, and like he was kind of. I saw that was when I found him the most interesting during that time period. Like, he was a cool character to me. Like, he was, when he doesn't have that responsibility of leading the X-Men, he always seemed more interesting to me. And now, when he's done this kind of like turn, and he's kind of, I don't know, for a while it seemed like he was in the middle of the Professor X Magneto ideology. Maybe now he's swung a little bit more towards Magneto's side, but it's definitely interesting what they're doing with them.
Definitely.
Right. So what else is going on in Uncanny Avengers?
The first thing that grabbed me when I was reading this was the sheer, like, it's kind of trippy, a little freaky when you turn the page and the first thing you see is some dude operating on somebody's brain. So I thought that was kind of it was kind of like a horror science fiction feel.
I wasn't expecting that.
Yeah, it was different. And then when Logan's giving the eulogy, when he said Chuck saw the only path, protecting those who hated us and feared us till they didn't, wrote it The road ain't never been easy, not for Chuck, not for any of us who followed him as X-Men. To me, that kind of spoke to what this book is going to be all about, which is the Uncanny Avengers is going to be about, fighting for Xavier's dream, and certain Avengers. Captain America feels like he didn't, help the mutants during their times of need when he could have, and the Avengers could have. So he's trying to make up for that by forming this team with Alex Summers. So he basically wants Alex Summers to lead a team of Avengers, some of the best people they have to offer. So judging by the cover, it looks like it's going to be Thor, Havoc, Rogue, Scarlet Witch, Captain America, and Wolverine, which is interesting. So what happens is we see that it looks like the mutant that was being operated on was Avalanche, which is a classic X-Men villain and Avengers villain during the time when I think it was called Freedom Force, where it was Mystique's team. It was Avalanche, Pyro, and the Blob. So I thought that was a pretty perfect villain to pick out for this book. And he basically starts just terrorizing some part of New York. It seems like buildings are coming down. People are just getting crushed, it looks like.
That's a pretty good description. Yeah.
We see Havoc and Thor and Captain America working together to stop Avalanche. They're pretty successful, but when Cap gets up to face off against Avalanche, he just kind of... It looks like he's being controlled by someone. It doesn't look like it's him, and he just kind of commits suicide, dives off one of his cliffs that he's kind of created off the ground, and just disappears into the rubble. I don't know if he's still alive or dead or what. And then Havoc kind of tries to get all the rest of the survivors that they can out of there. And then we get a little inner monologue from Cap. It says, "What absolute horror. I always knew it would end like this. If you want to excite a crowd to violence, preach of peace and tolerance, and they'll tear you apart. Desperate and panicked, made such a mess of it all, Charles." Or I think that's actually the Scarlet Witch who was saying that. So yeah, the book switches to the Scarlet Witch at the gravesite of Professor X.
For those who don't know, explain who the Scarlet Witch is.
She's the daughter of Magneto, and back in, I think it was around 2003 or 4, they did a storyline called House of M, which involved the Avengers and the X-Men. And basically, the Scarlet Witch has these magical powers. They're not really well defined. She wasn't trained by Professor X. Magneto never wanted that for her, and she was part of the Brotherhood of Evil Mutants in the 60s. And then I think in the 70s, maybe it was the late 60s, they turned her into an Avenger. The whole basis of House of M was that she never really learned how to use or control her powers, and they drove her insane. And because of the drama between Professor X and Magneto and the fact that mutants were always persecuted, she decided to recreate the world with her magical powers without any mutants. It was a world where mutants had taken over and become the dominant species.
Yeah, humans were the minority.
Humans were the minority, and Magneto was like king. Basically, some of them broke out of her magical spell, and I think it was Wolverine and Layla Miller and a few other characters, and they mounted a force against her, and they stopped her. And then she was so furious with their
well, she gave them what they wanted.
Right, and she was angry that they weren't happy about it. Right. So she kind of erased what she did and said no more mutants, and the mutant race was decimated and left with only 200 mutants, I think, on the planet, which kind of crippled them. And that's what kind of resulted in this whole Messiah,
Right, she's kind of, in a lot of people's eyes, the start of all of this mayhem that's happened up to this point.
Right, yeah, especially Rogue and a few others. So what we get here is Rogue is really furious with her even being present at the X Mansion and at the gravesite of Professor X. She just feels like it's really a huge disrespect to the X-Men and to Professor X. So they get into a heated argument. Basically, Rogue socks her in the face. She tries to absorb her powers, and she can't, and there's a huge explosion, and then we see that there's this, the goat face, they call her the goat face girl.
Yep. This is where the book gets
really weird for me.
Remendered.
Yeah, really.
I'm going to start using his last name as a verb now. It's like, okay, Rick Remender is writing this book when all of a sudden a goat face girl shows up.
Yeah.
I've never heard of the goat face girl, but I'm guessing she's some kind of villain related to. Yeah, she's a good. But she has the ability to block powers, and that's why Rogue couldn't absorb the Scarlet Witch's powers. They attack her and her group of really weird looking people. Attack Rogue and the Scarlet Witch. One of them stabs the Scarlet Witch to the midsection, and then they basically rob Professor X's grave. And then the last page, which I thought was really cool, and then we find out that the person that was operating on Avalanche and the person that is behind this whole evil plot and the abduction of Professor X is the Red Skull, which is a huge Captain America villain.
What a last page.
Yeah, he's removed the brain of Charles Xavier and plans to eradicate the mutant race using Charles Xavier's brain somehow, which I thought was pretty cool. And I really like that he's the first villain because he's a huge Captain America villain and a huge Avengers villain. But in the same time, they used Avalanche too, which was a huge X-Men villain. So I thought that it's
a big nod to the old school books.
Yeah.
I know a lot of people. I've watched some reviews here and there on these, and I know there's quite a few people that were a bit disappointed that it was Red Skull again. I think people were maybe hoping for something different, something new, but I dig it. I don't know. I've never been. I've been really on and off reading the books, for those who don't know, over the years. So for me, it's perfectly fine, because to tell you the truth, I really haven't read a lot with Red Skull. But yeah, that last page, man, just looking at Charles and his head's just like
it's sawed off.
Yeah, I mean, man,
open. Like, I was like, that's fucking cool.
Talk about distasteful. Like, here's this whole book who's trying to honor Charles Xavier's memory, and it's like almost like a tearjerker for you, and all of a sudden you just flip to that last page. I mean, it's those two last pages that it's just like Rick Remender wrote this, and I see Red Skull with Charles Xavier's brain in his hands,
dripping blood,
and an opened head of a dead Charles Xavier. I was like, oh my gosh.
Yeah, pretty intense.
But Tommy, would you recommend this book, or?
Yeah, this to me, this is a definite buy. The art's really good. I like. After reading Uncanny X-Force, which if anyone listening hasn't read Uncanny X-Force, it's about 32 or 34 issues long, I want to say. If you can get that in an omnibus or a trade or in multiple trades, it's definitely worth reading. And I think this is going to be just as good. I mean, the guy's been really on a roll the past 2 years. So I feel like that Punisher run that.
Well, the cool thing about the Punisher run, and this is one reason why I like Rick Remender, how we were talking about bringing back Avalanche and having this mix-up with Red Skull again, the one positive I like is he did something similar with the Punisher. He brought back old villains that were killed off in some weird way in the past from the 70s and the 80s, and like you were like, oh man, I've never heard of these characters. But then they introduce them, or for those fans that have been reading, the Silver Age and whatnot, they're like, oh my gosh, I haven't heard of that character in forever. And so I do like that twist. I was like, oh my gosh, man, Avalanche, holy crap.
And I really think since he wrote that Punisher run, he's kind of seen what works, what doesn't work, how far he can push the envelope until the fans kind of react in a bad way.
How many people are ever going to forget Frank Castle getting cut up by Wolverine's son Bacon.
That scene for me, that panel where they're in the sewer and they battle it out.
It still sticks in my mind.
Yeah, and he gets diced up was pretty awesome. And I would have loved it if that was the ending to that.
Yeah.
But instead, it kind of went. To me, it kind of went south after that. And Wes, my good friend Wes, who got me into comics, he kind of felt the same way at the time. He was not happy about that. So.
Oh yeah, I mean that was the one thing that me and Wes bonded over was the Punisher, and to totally see this happen, I was just like, jaw dropped. What the heck? What am I supposed to do now?
Right.
So, but I mean
that's how. And until then, that book was awesome. I mean, the first issue opened up with the Sentry, which is, for our listeners who don't know, that's the Marvel's equivalent to Superman, had become Norman Osborn's bodyguard.
Yeah.
And
those who don't know, Norman Osborn is the Green Goblin.
Yeah,
or for those who don't know. And for those who don't know, this is definitely filled with spoilers. We didn't mention that. It's probably a little late now, but yeah.
Right.
Just put that out there.
There's a warning now.
Right, but he and Norman Osborn is obviously a villain, but he had become the Nick Fury of the Marvel Universe at that time. It's called Dark Reign. It was a really cool storyline that was kind of affecting all the books Marvel was putting out at that time, and it was great. I mean, Punisher was trying to take him out, and he had a sniper rifle on him. He fired a bullet at him, and the Sentry just kind of plucked it out of the sky, and he had me hooked right there. I mean, because the Punisher's having to deal with a Superman type opponent, and he's just a regular human being. I mean, he's a Navy SEAL, but that's not much when you're facing
Navy SEAL to the Sentry?
Hey. Get it correct. Punisher was from the Marines.
Oh,
there you go.
If he was here, I think he'd slap you in the face for that one.
You'd probably get shot over that one. With many, many bullets.
Tommy's a good guy. As long as Tommy's not hustling cocaine or anything, he's...
All right, yeah.
But the first issue, the cover art of the first issue, paid homage to the first appearance of Punisher from The Amazing Spider-Man. And instead of Spider-Man being in the crosshairs of Punisher's scope, it was alternate. It was either the Sentry or it was Norman Osborn. And I loved that cover so much that when I went to the Motor City Comic Con, I actually saw that the guy who made that cover, and forgive me, I forget his name, he was actually there and he had that. And I ended up buying it and having him sign it for me, and I got it framed.
Nice.
And I want to say, like, a lot of times, I think a lot of people take comics like way too seriously. It wasn't a bad storyline from what John told me. I didn't read too much of the Breaking Castle stuff, but it was, if you suspend disbelief, if you accept that it's comics and that this is just supposed to be a fun story, it wasn't that bad, right, John? Well, okay. Maybe
yes and no. I think it just depends. Like, if you grow up reading a character or whatnot, and all of a sudden something like this happens to them, you're like, what the heck? You destroyed one of my favorite characters. But if you're someone who's new, who picked up this book, who doesn't know that much about Punisher, Frankencastle, and you just see that he's this weird vigilante who does stuff in the name of his own moral justice, and you see that this is happening, you'd be like, actually, you know what? That's pretty cool. That's kind of cool. And like I said earlier, I mean, I think he did do a good job of explaining, this crazy crystal that, is now hidden in the Punisher's heart, actually helps bring him back together. So, I mean, he did do a full, 360 to let people know that the Punisher's back in normal. He is not Frankencastle again. He is not made of different body parts. He is himself again and doesn't need any machinery to live. So.
Oh, to get back to Uncanny Avengers, I want to say it's finally great to see Wanda Maximoff, the Scarlet Witch, finally catch some flack for House of M. Because up until this point, I don't think anyone has really called her out or confronted her about it.
I don't think she's really been around anybody either.
Yeah, she really wasn't. I'm trying to remember what book it is, and I am the first to admit I am at fault when it comes to Ultimate Universe and the Marvel 616 universe, and how they're different. I kind of mix up storylines every once in a while, but I swear I read somewhere where Scarlet Witch came back and everyone just ignored her. Was like, how could you betray us? The Avengers were like, how could you betray us? And the mutants were like, we don't want anything to do with you. But
Yeah, I don't know. Yeah, I kind of remember that. I do remember there was an issue with Hawkeye and I think the Beast where they had located her in that weird part of Europe that she's from, and Hawkeye had gone to see her and she pretended like she
Oh
didn't
yeah,
remember
that
him.
was in New Mutants. Or
New
sorry,
Avengers.
New Avengers. I was
Yeah,
saying
yeah,
Mutants.
yeah.
That was pretty cool. Yeah, he wanted to, because
Kind
I
of.
mean she brought him back to life, and
She yeah
so
he
he
she killed him and then
right.
brought him back like particle from particle, which was really weird. So
And I'm trying to think. I just read it not too long ago. I forgot where she was. Some European area in Europe, and
Wondagore or whatever. I think it was Wondagore where
yeah.
she's originally from.
But like she like totally like forgot everything and like didn't even like really know who he was and took him in and like I don't know if he was there to either kill her or just to say something.
I think he just wanted some answers, basically.
Yeah, something.
He couldn't understand why his own teammate would just
And I just
you know
remember like he,
uh,
he he basically seen that she didn't even like know who he was and he was like, well, this was a waste of time. She I mean, you could tell she wasn't faking that she didn't know him. I mean, she just legitimately thought that she
she's
was
crazy.
somebody else. Yeah, she's nuts. I mean, and he's just like, well, this bitch is loopy. I got to get out of here. And,
Yeah.
he ends up going back to the, New Avengers.
And during Avengers versus X-Men with the Phoenix Force coming to Earth after it had already annihilated life on a few other planets on its way, I felt like the Avengers were just kind of like, well, she's on our side. We have more important things to deal with. And the only one that was kind of like confronting her about it was Hope Summers.
Yeah.
And it's nice to see Rogue kind of, call her out on what happened. So it was a good ending of the book. So
Definitely.
yeah,
I definitely think it's a buy. I definitely think it's going to get better as it goes, and I'm excited to see where it goes. So,
Definitely. Yeah, I'd say buy two. I mean,
John,
yeah, I would definitely agree with you guys. I would pick it up again. Just like I said, that last scene is enough to make me be like, okay, what you made me bite the bullet. What's next? What's happening
right.
next? But sticking within the same area, Joe, if you'd like to go on and talk about the all new X-Men issue number 1.
Yeah, definitely. I'm a huge X-Men fan. That's what I started reading. So I'm just gonna try and go do a quick overview of the issue. I know I wrote a lot of notes on it, but I'm gonna try and skim through it a little bit. So basically, the whole House of M and AVX happens, and Cyclops is this fugitive with very few on his side, and so basically this issue starts off. First of all, Brian Bendis is writing, Stuart Immonen doing the art. I really like the art in this book. So the story starts off. You got Beast in his lab at the Jean Grey School, and I was trying to remember what he's working on, but he starts mutating all of a sudden, like spontaneously, and it's this painful thing. He's trying to fight it. So, Storm comes in, and she's like, yeah, you got to come meet with us here. So then it quickly flashes over to Australia, where we start meeting some of these new mutants that are popping up around the world, and we are shown this new mutant Ava. She's just a young innocent girl out partying with friends and stuff, and
that dress is a little short to be innocent.
well, yeah,
Well,
maybe so. That's innocent enough for me. I don't know. So she's out looking for some ass. That's what she's doing. She's not all that innocent. So anyways, she's talking to some boys that she likes, and her brother kind of disrupts the little meeting, and basically is just like, dude, what do you think you're doing? That's my sister. Blah blah blah. So they start getting into a fight, and this basically triggers her mutant power for the first time, which she's totally unaware that she has. And basically, she's got the power to control time and space. I dug that because I was a big fan of the show Heroes, so she reminds me of Hiro Nakamura a lot. So then we flash over to Scott Summers, Emma Frost, and Magneto, and they just suddenly appear, right after she froze time. And, they're just explaining to her, you're a mutant, and, we're here to help you and to, take you away from this and to train you and so you can understand your powers. So basically they're, on this journey to find as many mutants as they can, basically to team up with them, which is kind of devious because they have no idea who these people are. They don't know, if they're good or bad. They're just like, come with us, we'll help you. So that was pretty interesting. So after their little conversation, time unfreezes and everyone's back to normal, and now there's a SWAT team. Eva, she's like, I didn't mean to do it, and so the police know she's a mutant and she was a part of it. So Scott and his little team there, they basically take out the police and save her, and they get her out of there. So then they cut to another scene. They never really show the conclusion of that. So we're back at Jean Grey School, and Iceman and Kitty are watching Scott's team's actions on television, and Bobby, Iceman, he's like, they're mutant revolutionaries, like they're trying to figure out what's going on. They're just talking about, back in the day, what would their younger selves, think about themselves now, like, they're completely different characters now. So, I think Bobby even says, this, he feels this is worse than the mutant apocalyptic nightmare they used to worry about when they were younger. They basically think that things are worse off now than what they originally could have thought to be, this apocalyptic event. So then we flash over to Michigan, and we meet another new mutant named Christopher. He's in a police interrogation room. So basically the story was him and a friend were out, and she fell and hit her head. And it appeared that she died, and when he touched her, she came back to life. And so, the police caught up with him, and he's totally unaware that he's a mutant once again. They're basically accusing him of being a mutant, and he doesn't even know he's a mutant. And, before they finish talking, Scott and company attack the entire police force and break them out. I mean, they just come in guns blazing and get him out of there. And before leaving, this was a pretty little epic moment. Cyclops, stops and looks up on a security camera, and he says, if you are a mutant, you're part of an elite species that deserves every freedom. Don't worry, my brother and sister of the atom. We are the X-Men, and we stand together. And then he throws up his arms in the X, which was...
Oh, man.
Yeah, I thought that was fucking awesome.
That reminded me of Magneto. Like, it was just flashbacks. I was like, oh, my gosh.
Magneto, I mean, and Magneto is one of my favorite characters of all time. He was never that cool. I mean, that scene where he throws up the both his arms and he does the X cross. In the Children of the Atom, that hasn't been talked about since the 90s.
Yeah.
Like that idea or whatever, that ideology. That was cool. I mean, I really liked it a lot. And the fact that they're giving this guy shit in the interrogation room about healing someone that was going to die.
Yeah.
And the guy looks like Steve Urkel.
Yeah, he does.
I mean, Jesus Christ. Like, the guy looks harmless. Like, why the hell are you doing this to him? And this is the kind of bigotry that I talk about. And it exists in the real world out there today in a lot of forms. And the fact that they're giving this little guy such a hard time.
Poor dude.
He has no clue. He's just like, I don't even know what I did. Like,
yeah, exactly.
Yeah, it was pretty funny. I just thought that whole scene though of them breaking into the police station to bust them out. Like, I mean, I know where Cyclops' mindset is right now, so like he kind of just doesn't give a shit about hurting people or whatever. Like, I think they could have got him out of there with much less of. They didn't have to start World War III in a police station. Like, I'm sure like Emma could have like mind wiped everybody and just like walked him out of there or something. Like, I don't know. I just thought they could have did that a little less violent. But I guess that's where they are right now. They're really just there for their own people, and they don't really care, who they got to step over to take care of their own. But that was just, what I thought of that little scene. But that was really cool, though, that last little scene before that cuts out and, that little speech he makes to the camera. That was a little epic moment of that issue for sure.
Best part of the issue.
Yeah, definitely.
Maybe besides when Beast goes back in time, which you haven't gotten to yet, but
right.
Yeah.
So we're back at the Jean Grey school, and Storm and everyone, they're discussing what they're gonna have to do about Cyclops and his team. They can't let this keep going on. So they know they need to stop him, but they don't want to start a mutant civil war. God knows they've already gone through civil wars of all types in the past, and with Avengers, AVX and everything, and basically they're like, he's ruining everything we've worked for. And I think Kitty Pryde said that, they're just like really disappointed in him. So after a bit more conversation between the team there, Beast acknowledges that Bobby's right in saying that the old Scott would beat the shit out of the new Scott, or the present Scott. So I think he starts formulating a little idea. So then we flash back to the past. I think it was like right after an incident where they had like a scuffle with angry humans. Bobby and Hank, and this is Beast before his transition to
good old Beast.
Yeah, they storm into Scott's office, or the office. I don't know if it was Scott's, but
Probably professors.
Yeah.
He just sneaks in after the professor's out.
Like, I'm gonna write Jean a love note.
Look at me, look at me.
I'm the professor's
So
desk.
innocent. The good old 60s.
I'm assistant to Professor.
I'm going to profess my love to her.
So Hank announces that he almost thinks Magneto's right, and that he's ready to quit the X-Men, and he's sick of defending and fighting for these people that just hate them. And he's like, I'm just gonna worry about myself from now on. He's like, I'm out of here. I'm quitting. And just as he's walking out the door, they run into the Future Beast, and they're just like all taken back, like, what the hell am I looking at? Who is this? And after a short explanation, he announces that he has come to acquire their help. To basically, he says, I need you to come to my present day, and I need you to talk to yourself, to Scott. I need you to stop yourself from committing mutant genocide.
He's like, basically, I need you to come to the future and slap the shit out of yourself.
Exactly. And dude, like as soon as they flashed back, instantly it like grabbed me by the heart. I'm like, awesome, we're getting. At first, I just thought it was just gonna be a little flashback to something.
Little flashback, right.
And then it just becomes this whole other thing. And man, it's so cool to me. I mean, I'm really excited about this book for sure.
Yeah, and Bendis is doing a great job, and he does a great job. The only writer I put ahead of Bendis is Hickman, who's currently writing Avengers and New Avengers. Bendis is great, and Avengers was ready to be canceled when he took over. Like the sales were abysmal, and he turned that whole franchise around, and now they are more successful.
And that was before or after his run on New Avengers?
Right, and now they sell more comics. Avengers comics sell more comics than X-Men comics, which before it was the other way around. X-Men was the the title for Marvel Comics. So, and I also like the this is the fourth time the Beast is mutating, and in his old age, it makes sense to me that he wouldn't be able to survive it.
Yeah.
Like, he went from being a human to being like a ape-like human, to being a furry blue guy, to being a cat-looking furry blue guy, to I don't know what's coming next. Like,
I just hope it's not more cat-like. I don't need any more cat-like in him. I don't know. I didn't dig the cat look to him.
I honestly, Bendis is not afraid to kill characters off,
Yeah.
and I don't. I think the fact that Beast is a very smart character. If he thinks he's dying, it to me it means that
It could be foreshadowing that.
yeah, and it sucks because we just recently they just killed off Nightcrawler, and now we might be losing Beast in the next 12 to 24 issues of all new X-Men or Uncanny X-Men. But I'm fine. I'm fine with character death. Like as long as it's meaningful and it pushes a story forward, and they don't bring the character back.
At least for a good long time.
At least for a good 10 years. Yeah,
Yeah.
I'm totally fine with it.
I have been enjoying that Jean Grey has not been back, but now that they're going in the past, I'm sure we're going to see the young Jean Grey, and we've already seen the miniseries with the young, new X-Men coming and into the future and whatnot. But they've been a lot better lately with that. I mean, took Cap only 5 years to come back after his death. So
no, I don't. Was it 5 years or was it less than that?
Honestly,
might have been 3 or 4. I don't think it was 5 years. It definitely the.
Was it 2005 when he died?
2005 or 6, yeah. And then they brought it back. I think
in
there was like the Red Skull Captain America thing that they did.
Yeah. I'm trying to equate it to what I was doing in real life, and then I think it was 2009 when they brought him back.
Yeah.
When Rebirth
came. It was right when I started working at the comic book store.
In my opinion,
yep.
He could
2009, yeah.
They could have kept Cap dead for a little bit longer. In my opinion, I think they could have, and it would have been better, but they didn't, and whatever.
Okay.
But
so, Joe, what would you say is your favorite part of this book?
Well, definitely the jail breakout was, an epic moment for me. I liked seeing the new characters, to be honest, though, and seeing some new characters get introduced.
Yeah, I think Bendis picked some nice power sets for the new characters. And I think they're strong power sets where they can combat a large group of X-Men.
Yeah, I feel like he was watching Heroes, though, when he made those characters.
He might have been.
What about you, Tommy? What was your favorite?
My whole thing is, when I first got introduced to the X-Men was the cartoon show in the 90s. And for me, the idea, this whole time travel storyline, I love time travel, especially with the X-Men. It's, to me, those are the best stories. And Days of Futures Past is one of my favorite stories of all time. And the idea of the 60s team coming to the future has me really excited for this book. I'm really pumped up. I'm really excited. Yeah, for sure.
Definite buy for me. I mean,
definitely, yeah. For sure.
Oh yeah,
it's pretty much guaranteed any X title I'm gonna buy. But yeah, this was definitely worth it for sure.
I think they did a good job with this one, and you really can't go wrong when Brian Michael Bendis is writing a book. So I would definitely approve this one.
Yep.
So, all right, and in case everyone's been wondering why Ruth hasn't chipped in with anything, she is strictly and solely Indestructible Hulk. The Incredible Hulk is her favorite character, and so we are actually going to ask her to be doing a review on the new Indestructible Hulk. So, Ruth, take it away.
Oh, yeah, sure. Well, let's see. All right. The Indestructible Hulk, #1, story by Mark Waid, artist Lionel Yu. Agent of S.H.I.E.L.D. So basically, they tell you what happens right off the bat in the title. Starts out at a diner in Manchester, Alabama, where the director of S.H.I.E.L.D., Maria Hill, is sitting down with, I believe, Agent Colster or something like that. And they are looking for Dr. Banner. Who, coincidentally enough, is there at the diner with them. And it's really not a coincidence because he was there on purpose. He actually was there to try to get Maria Hill to assign him to be an agent of S.H.I.E.L.D. Of course, she was like, "You're crazy. Why would you do that? You're a monster. All you do is rage." But he told her that he has been basically spending like the whole time away trying to figure out a way to get rid of it, but he realized that the best thing to do is just live with it and make good of it, and so he wants to be a part of S.H.I.E.L.D. to try to help them beat bad guys, which I think is cool because I just think it's very, very Hulk. I mean, I think that he captured the essence of him. I mean, he's not a bad guy. He just has a problem with getting out of control.
Right. I think the thing I really enjoyed about and what you explained was how pertinent it was that Bruce Banner finally realizes that, you know what, this thing, this Hulk, is me, and I need to stop trying to find a cure for myself and just live with it and start actually working and producing enough talent to show the world. And I think that that right there made this book turn in an interesting step, because instead of us getting the same old, you know, oh, I'm poor Bruce Banner, you're actually seeing him like
Step
taking
up.
charge. Yeah. And
Right.
being like, you know what? Tony Stark and Reed Richards are doing all this stuff, and they're going to be known and remembered for all these magnificent things. And what is Dr. Bruce Banner going to be remembered for? Being the Incredible Hulk.
Yeah, smashing things.
Yeah,
Right.
yeah.
But
Hulk
I
smash.
thought it was cool that the focus is more on Bruce Banner than it is the Hulk.
Yeah.
Right,
Which
right,
for the past couple, I want to say since Planet Hulk,
Oh, yeah,
It's been-
exactly.
it's been all about the Hulk. In fact,
Right.
I think there was a point where they were trying to separate the two or something, right, John?
Well, yeah, you know,
Yeah.
I mean, and then the Hulk has an intellect, and you know, they've been trying to do a bunch of things, you know, and I think the Hulk has been a great read, you know, for quite some time now. It isn't my go-to book whenever I am at the shop, but when Indestructible came out, I was like, you know what, I'll give this a chance. And
Yeah.
like I said, Hulk's my wife's favorite character, so we've really, really enjoyed it. But
Yeah, I really like this a lot, and I think Mark Waid has done a really good job with Daredevil, and he's doing an even better job with the Hulk.
yes, yeah.
I think it's a pretty common thing, though, just from, you know, people's reviews I've been reading, that a lot of people have not really been following the Hulk for a long time, but they wanted to just kind of, since this Marvel now has been happening, they're like, let's give this a shot. And a lot of people, I think, are surprising themselves that they really like this, you know, and hopefully, you know, that gets them to want to read some of the older stuff. I know it does for me, because I
Right.
was never really a big Hulk reader. I'm reading some of the old, you know, original Hulk stuff now. But yeah, this is a good read, man.
Yeah.
Ruth, you want to tell the listeners what happened next?
So basically, he basically gives her like an ultimatum, like, hey, if you don't do this, I'm pretty much just gonna make life hard for you. And as they're doing that, she's like checking the clock all the time, and so he's like, well, clearly you have somewhere to be, like you're planning on some, there's some kind of mission they have to go do or something. He's like, let me, come in there and take care of things, and let me show you that I can do this, and not just like completely ruin everything. And so, they all have to go out or whatever, and the Hulk comes out, takes care of business. And so she was basically like, yeah, you're right, we want you to be on the same team as us, and we wouldn't want you against us. So basically that was honestly like that whole first issue. I mean, it was just the build up to them being like, yeah, we want him to be an agent of S.H.I.E.L.D., basically.
Right, yeah.
And I tell you what, like the mission like scene was pretty epic to me. I mean, I just thought it was so intense how they build it up. It was just such a like a laid back intro, and had a little intensity here and there. You're like, oh, what's gonna happen? And then bam, this awesome fight scene, and I love like the artwork in it, and like the 2-page spread of like the Hulk just like completely raging out. I mean, it was awesome. Sweet. I was sweet.
Yeah, it was. Yeah, that was amazing.
Yeah.
But
I like that the Hulk or Bruce Banner ends up naked at the end of the comic, because like the few comics that I read from the 70s and 80s always ended up with Banner being pretty absolutely fucking naked.
So I enjoyed
maybe that's why I like it so much. I
don't know. The fact that it is this book, is half negotiation. He's having negotiating with Shield, and then all of a sudden, like Ruth said, he pinpoints out that she's looking at the clock constantly, and then he's talking about the Mad Thinker, and the Mad Thinker is one of the enemies. Obviously, thinking about it, no pun intended, he's basically a mad scientist, and he thinks he's going to create all this awesome stuff, and I love that Bruce is just kind of like, you know what, here, let me show you, and they go outside, and then all of a sudden the woman just is, you see her grab like a board or whatever to hit him in the back of the head, and then all of a sudden, boom, he just hulks out and just destroys.
Yeah, it's just trying to kickstart him. That's all.
Oh yeah.
Great first issue. Great first issue.
For sure. Definitely a nice fresh take on it. That's for sure.
And the art's great.
Oh my gosh, yes, it's fantastic.
Yeah. I think out of all the books, if you are a person that is interested and you are like, there's too much going on, I don't know, I think this sleeper book would be the one to pick up, honestly.
Oh, yeah.
Because you can relate to the character a bit, and who doesn't like to see a big, huge green guy just smashing people to smithereens? So
this is definitely a book that you can, if you've never read Marvel Comics before, you can pick up.
Yeah.
And know everything that's going on. You understand. You're having fun. You don't have to have been reading Marvel Comics for the past decade or 2 decades. So, yeah, for sure.
When did they... How long has Agent Coulson, been in the books? I thought he was just created in the movies, or is that wrong?
I think he's been around since the first Avengers movie. I think they've started incorporating him into Marvel Comics.
He wasn't in the books before, though, right?
No.
Okay.
No.
I don't. Yeah.
No, I don't think so.
Unless someone's listening to this and they're screaming through their computer monitor like, "You idiots!" I thought he was like a Joss Whedon creation, and then they incorporated him in the book. But I could totally be wrong. I mean, there's so many Shield agents.
Yeah.
That I lose track and whatnot if I don't write it down.
Like the ones in Deadpool.
Yes.
We'll get to that later.
The Z team in Deadpool.
Another quick question: Are any of you guys use the little AR symbols in the corners? Do you ever actually scan those?
Yes, I wanted to talk about that.
I haven't. I have never scanned one of them before because I don't have an iPhone.
You don't need an iPhone. If you have an iPhone or an Android, you're able to download it.
But I don't have either. So
well, then you're
a smart tip.
But
yeah.
This is something that came out during Avengers vs. X-Men. Yeah. And what you do is you download the application on your phone, and it kind of works like a barcode scanner. So whenever you're reading a comic and you see a little AR in a red box, you take your phone and you zoom in on it. And something will happen through your phone. Some type of video will play. I thought this was brilliant.
Yeah, it's pretty cool.
Marvel did such a good job with incorporating it in your book, and it almost makes you feel justified for paying the $3.99 for a book, because you get all these little extra fun little things. from either it becomes kind of like a live action comic, or during one of the scenes in Avengers versus X-Men, where Wolverine gets just burnt up from Hope. You play it, and then they actually had a bone doctor. Forgive me, I'm forgetting the name of it. Actually, talk about Wolverine's skeletal system. It was
Well, that's
beautiful.
cool.
It was awesome.
And it's
But
always
yeah,
something random. It sometimes
Yeah.
it like almost has nothing to do with what you're scanning, but it maybe a little bit. Or I don't know.
Yeah.
I've scanned. I've only done a few maybe since I've been picking up these new issues, and some of them are pretty insightful. They give you a little bit more backstory to it. Sometimes they'll put that on a page or a panel that maybe there's something in the background you're not catching, and they kind of fill you in on that and let you know. So it's pretty cool that they're doing that. I like that idea.
Yeah, yeah. I think they did a good job with it. It's fun. It's cheesy.
Yeah,
It's goofy, But if you have time and you want to sit there, and the app is free,
Yeah. Definitely.
Another thing I think Marvel's doing, and sorry to stray off topic, but I love the fact that I buy the physical copy and I get a free digital copy
Yeah.
with it.
Is it the same? Is it the same book that you bought?
Yes,
It's
it
not,
is.
oh, so it's not bonus material.
No.
No, it is the same book that you bought, and I think they just did it's great. No knocks on DC, but DC makes you pay the extra buck for it. I haven't sat down and actually redeemed any of my digital copies yet, but from what I've heard, it does a good job. So,
Yeah. It's just
thank you,
nice.
Marvel.
It's really convenient for you want to read some of your issues on the go, on your
Right, exactly. If
iPad
you
or
if you have
iPod
to
or whatever.
take a long car ride and you don't want to bring issues, but you bring your Kindle or your Nook or whatever,
Yep.
and you download their application and you have your library sitting right there. It's pretty nice.
Yeah.
So,
Definitely. All right. Well, Tom, you want to go
I-
into another?
John, do you want to do one?
Or yeah.
yeah, you know what? Yeah, I'll start next. I'll just go over Captain America, which is also written by Rick Remender and illustrated by John Romita. And for those that don't know, Romita has actually done a lot of work. He is actually
Kick-Ass.
Kick-Ass, exactly. I was just going to say he was the artist in Kick-Ass. And that was one of the first things that I realized. Romita is one of those guys that whoever you talk to, either they love him or they hate him. I like his artwork. It is kind of cartoony, but I enjoy it.
Yeah.
But the first scene that opened up, I felt that it was little Steve Rogers. We're back. It's 1926, and little Steve Rogers is hiding under the table, and his dad's some Irish American immigrant who ends up beating his wife, and laying the smackdown on her. And I'm looking at it, and I'm like, well, little Steve Rogers kind of looks like Kick-Ass, but
Yeah.
Yeah.
A little bit.
they,
Yeah.
they did do a good job with it, though. I was taken aback that Steve Rogers' dad would be a wife beater, but I guess it's the 1920s, and
There has to be some reason why he's so the way that he is, right?
right.
I don't know. I've never read too many Captain America comics other than from the past 10 years in Avengers, but he's always such this pure character, and they've never really given a reason for it other than he wanted to fight for his country and defeat the Nazis. So this kind
Yeah.
of makes more sense now.
Yeah, it adds to his character. You're correct, and he that scene actually. He asked his mom, "Why didn't she just back down? Like, just stop? Don't. Why did you keep antagonizing him?" And she's just like, "You never stop." And it was like it is almost that moment. Like, it gets ingrained in Steve Rogers that his mother, this great female character, could be like, even though she's beaten down, she's still is strong and still never gives up,
Yeah.
never surrender. But then it switches over to the present time, and Cap is talking about this guy who is a hippie version of the Red Skull, calling himself the Green Skull. The villain's whole purpose is to try to eradicate the human race, just wipe out everyone and make the planet all green again.
Because we're just bacteria consuming the entire planet and destroying everything.
Yeah.
Earth would be better off without us.
Yeah.
And, so he's driving this old, B-52 bomber and getting ready to do it, and Cap's just talking, and he's like, got to do what you got to do, and he swings in there, beats the crap out of the guy, and, saves the day once again because he's Captain America, and he's parachuting out, switched to a scene of a cop pulling over a woman who obviously was speeding or whatnot because she has a date with a decent guy. And she says to the cop, good guys just don't fall out of the sky. And as soon as she says that, Captain America parachutes with the Green Skull in hand down right by him, then tells the cop, hey, can you watch this guy? I got to call the Avengers up to take care of this plane.
John, can I say something? Page 4, when that B-52 bomber is crashing towards the ground, that is a pretty nicely drawn.
Nice vision.
Oh yeah, it is.
Yeah, it's badass. And the thing, John Romita Jr. is a great artist. It's very stylized, and I tend to now as I get older, I'm starting to like this type of artwork more than the super photorealistic artwork. And I really, 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 what really makes this comic come to life for me is the colorists. The colors are really nice, and they fit this trippy, almost in some parts psychedelic type story by Rick Remender. The colors really make it for me. I don't know. It just really comes to life because of this colorist. Yeah.
Who the colorist is.
Yeah, I'm trying to find right now.
That's
I think it's Klaus Janson.
Klaus Janson, yeah. If I'm not butchering his name.
It reminds me a lot of Opinia, who is working on New Avengers right now. And it's really good. Yeah, this is good stuff. I really like it a lot.
Oh yeah. Getting back to the book, the scene switches over, and Cap is talking to Sharon, and she gets him a little present and whatnot, and he's not used to doing this. And then she mentions, it's his birthday today, and Captain America, Steven Rogers, turns 90, and I don't know if that hit you guys, but that totally hit me. Like, I was like, oh my gosh, I'm like 90 years old, and he's still, looks great. Thank you, Super Serum, Soldier Serum.
Right.
But, it was awesome. But, there they are talking, and they're actually talking about real life and how Sharon wants to get married, and how, Cap is kind of afraid. He's kind of nervous. He even mentions, he's like, back in my day, usually it's the men who asked, and it's just funny to see, even though this is a superhero, the human emotions coming into this comic. Like, okay, would a superhero really want to get married? Would you really want to do that to your spouse? And, even though this was just a little part of the book, it really stuck out for me, and I liked it. It gave Steven Rogers a human feeling. But then they start talking about everything that's going on, work-related and whatnot, and they end up going through this tunnel, and forgive me, but this is where it kind of got confusing, and I feel this is, where everything starts to get... This is where it gets remembered. And so they go through this tunnel, and they're alerted that only one person can get on this subway train because it's too packed. So Steve says, I'll get on, and, we'll talk later. So he gets on, and he grabs the subway pole, so when it starts moving, he doesn't fall over. And then handcuffs come out and they cuff him. He's like, "Oh, geez, what's happening?" And then the train goes into super, high flash motion, and all of a sudden everything transforms around him, and it's like these aliens, these monsters, and it talks about being in Dimension Z. And
kind of reminds me of Dimension X from Ninja Turtles.
yeah, you seriously, like, you sit there, and I mean, as a novice reader, if you're reading this, you're like, what the heck is going on?
Yeah, this would be, if this was me 10 years ago reading this book, I would be blown away. This would be awesome.
And so he gets there. They knock him out, and he reawakens, and he's strapped down, and they are pumping his blood out. And he sees very fuzzily a baby in a tank, like almost a test tube type baby, receiving these nutrients, the Captain America nutrients. And you're just like, what the heck is going on? And all of a sudden, Armin Zola comes out of nowhere, just like, oh, hey, remember me? And for the longest time, he has been one of Cap's enemies. Think a guy in a robot suit with his face on the chest. And if you saw Captain America the movie, it's the little guy with the glasses and the big head, and he's squirrely looking and whatnot. That's the character. But in the book, he's totally different.
Oh, the scientist?
Yes, the scientist.
Okay.
I did a little. I for the life of me, when I read this, I was like, I don't know who the fuck this is, and I went online and I was looking it up, and he's actually the scientist. He developed the technology to be able to imprint a mind onto basically a vegetable cloned body. So anybody for that matter, he could take a separate mind and imprint it onto another mind. So he is responsible for creating the hate monger, which is basically Adolf Hitler, his brain imprinted onto a different body, which he then later used to cause chaos in Nick Fury's life and stuff, which we're going to be reading about in our retro reviews.
Oh, I can't wait to read that.
Yeah, exactly. So
that'll be great.
Yeah, that's going to be great. That's going to be awesome. So he was also part of the Red Skull's plan when everybody thought Captain America was dead. He really had put him in a limbo state, and his technology is responsible for that. From what I understand, from what I read on Wikipedia. So that was.
But yeah, in case you want to know more about this character, you can always trust the trustworthy Wikipedia and go read there. It helps a lot. It really does. But eventually, Captain does what he always does, and he breaks out, and through all this chaos, he destroys the lab. His shield bounces off everywhere. And Zola thinks that Captain ended up killing his kid. And you realize that it's, Zola's child when he says it. And this younger girl comes out and he mentions it to her that he killed your brother. He killed your brother. So Cap escapes, and he escapes in some crazy jet, from Dimension Z, and he somehow shoots himself back into the 616 Earth universe, and he crash lands it and gets out, and he lifts up his shield, and the baby is sitting, laying in the shield. Yeah. And so he's happy to see that the boy has survived, and we are left with that.
Yeah, I was gonna say, I think it's a boy, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
It's a boy. That's the baby from the tube, right?
Yeah.
Yes.
But he has a brother, and it's.
Well, no, it's the sister.
No, he has a sister.
Oh, sister. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
All right.
So If you're a Captain America fan, it would obviously definitely be a book to pick up. Um, would I suggest this book to a new, fresh-faced reader? If I wasn't worried that they would get confused, yes, totally.
What are
But
they going to get it confused about? What are you worried that they're going
well,
last half.
Zola, for instance, not knowing anything about, why is Captain America going in this subway to be transported to this further dimension? You'd have to explain to him, oh, we'll find out sooner or later what's going to happen. And here's the backstory on this enemy and whatnot, and here's the backstory with what's going on with Cap and Sharon and everything. I mean, out of what we've reviewed so far, this might be the least amount that I would recommend to a new user.
You think
but
it's
I would definitely
friendly?
recommend it.
Least friendly to new readers?
Yeah. I mean, you have to have some typical back knowledge of Captain America, and I mean, they kind of did that in the first page, going back to 1926, but it wasn't enough to be a issue number 1 to know what was going on. It was like when Flash Rebirth happened, and
that was bad.
I picked up the first issue of Flash. I was expecting to get at least a summarized version of his story, or what.
And there was none. There was none at all. I think this did a better job than that.
Oh yeah. I do too. But I just, if I was the first reader of Flash, I had no clue. I did not pick up the book again, and I just feel this would happen with a new reader with Captain America. If I had no clue, I just kind of knew about Captain America. I picked this up, and I was like, he's fighting aliens from another dimension. No thanks. But it was still good. It's a still good book, But
this issue was a pretty much a roller coaster with me. I read the first few pages, about his past and his parents, and I liked it. And then it goes to this great visual of this plane going down. I was like, sweet. And then they introduced this green skull, and I didn't like that. And
what didn't you like about that?
I don't know. It
was almost like I ran out of ideas, so
they just recycled the red skull and made it a hippie version of him, and
I don't know. It spoke to me, but maybe it's because I live in San Francisco and there's so many freaking hippies.
You need to get back to your roots, my friend. No, no, I'm just kidding. I used to live in California, so for anyone listening, it's not that I have anything against. Anyways, and then it was, the whole thing with him and Sharon was cool, and then I didn't know, they had no idea where this train went to, so it was almost like a mission that he had no idea what he was getting himself into.
And he kind of talks about that.
Yeah.
Before he even gets on the train.
And then as soon as they make that transition, that splash page of this Dimension Z or whatever, I was like, what the hell? And then it kind of got interesting again. You see this baby floating in this tube, and he's strapped to this table thing, and they're pumping blood out of him, and then
that was gnarly, by the way.
Yeah,
that was.
Yeah, it started getting interesting again, and I don't know. I had mixed feelings on this. It ended up pretty good. It wasn't that bad. It was.
I'm looking forward to the next issue.
Yeah,
but it didn't suck me in like Hulk did.
Oh,
right,
not,
exactly.
And
for a first issue, I think it could have been a little better.
But there was a lot of things that I related to, like the opening pages, the parents fighting. My parents used to fight a lot when I was younger, so I could relate to that.
Right.
Did you hide under the table?
Nah, I didn't hide under the table.
Why didn't you back down, Mama?
I don't really want to get into it.
Mama.
But the stuff with Sharon, I think maybe a little recap on their relationship would have been good.
Yeah. I mean, the thing is too, who is Sharon? You know, if
Yeah,
you
so
haven't
you
read
read-
anything.
You have no idea.
Yeah, I
Yeah,
had no
no
clue
clue.
because I didn't read any Captain at all.
Yeah.
So I was like,
So
okay,
this
well,
book, you'd have to use Wikipedia a lot, honestly.
yeah.
So, well, that about wraps up episode 1. We hope you enjoyed it, and stay tuned for episode 2, where we'll be discussing the Avengers, Uncanny X-Force, Thunderbolts, and Cable and X-Force. Thanks for listening.